What's up, yellow little faith, and welcome to episode 3 of the second season of the Fagnostic Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Hayes, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming Andrew Evans to the show. He's an author, speaker, and TV host, so let me just give you the rundown. He's completed over 60 assignments for National Geographic, reporting from all 7 continents and over 100 different countries. His purposeful journeys to these meaningful destinations include following an 18th century sea captain's diary to some of the most remote islands of Polynesia, hiking 500 miles across the Kingdom of Jordan, and riding public transportation on a 12,000-mile overland trip to Antarctica. He's a contributor to National Geographic, BBC Travel, the Boston Globe, and the Chicago Tribune. He's the author of 5 books, including his award-winning memoir, The Black Penguin, which you may have heard of. We'll talk about it here today, as well as his best-selling guidebooks to Iceland and Ukraine. We're also going to talk a lot about his thoughts on the current war being fought there. And for the sake of this podcast's relevance, he's a gay-identifying former Mormon. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram at Where's Andrew. Get ready for one of the most intellectual conversations I've had on this show. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the show. I'm really honored to talk to you. I've heard such wonderful things about you from my friend and business partner, Del Shores. And then after looking you up and just reading all about you, I was like, Jesus God, this man is a wealth of knowledge and experience. So I'm really excited to talk to you. And I shouldn't assume man, I apologize. We'll identify your pronouns first as opposed to second. So can you identify your pronouns for me real quick?
I am he, him, dom, top, in touch with my feminine side.
All right. Thank you for that's more than I usually get, but I love that those what those words mean, because it's very important for our community to have those conversations. And then also are you a believer?
I am a believer.
And what does that word mean to you?
It means I have an open mind. I am a healthy skeptic. I explore, I investigate, and I appreciate the unknown.
Love that. And those are all qualities that I imagine we're not encouraged to adopt or explore growing up in the Mormon church. Is that right?
True. And the pronouns as well.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Well, duh. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing about church or growing up in the church, I think, is them the adherence to the binary, whether it involves gender or position or role or sex or there's just no appreciation of the gray area. And I didn't choose to live in the gray area, but I did choose to find beauty in living in the gray area. So I think that's where my favorite people live too. So fuck the binary. So tell me about growing up in the Mormon church. Did you grow up in Utah or where somewhere else?
I did not grow up in Utah, and it's amazing how many people make the assumption.
The state is just, I feel like, exactly. Yeah.
Well, my ancestors settled the state in the 1840s and 50s. They were the first wave of pioneers that arrived. I'm a 7th generation Mormon, and I grew up in Ohio. So I was born in Texas and grew up in Ohio. And I should just add that so much of Mormonism is about this kind of rebirth of Christianity in America, the restoration of the fullness of Christianity, and it would spread from America, from Zion in Utah, across the world. And so growing up in Ohio, which was a Mormon settlement back at the very founding of Mormonism, we were the only Mormons in the town. We had a very small congregation. So it was very much, you are chosen among Gentiles, and you have to be an example. You have to show the truth of your faith in all of your words and deeds and actions. So there was a lot of pressure from a very young age to convert everyone I saw. And that's a lot of pressure for a kid, as well as being a perfect example and never making any mistakes and disappointing Jesus.
Because it's a little more about the actions than it is anything else, right?
Oh, I think Mormonism is all of it. The actions are important, the words are important, but the thoughts as well. I mean, it becomes almost this psychological conceit where your mind is always checking itself. Am I thinking the wrong thing, or am I? It messes with your head a little bit, because it is always. There's even a scripture in the Book of Mormon about watching your thoughts, words, and deeds. Yeah. So, I mean, I had that ingrained in me from a young age. However, let me tell you about the good parts of growing up Mormon.
Yes, I
because
love that you recognize that, first of all, because a lot of us, I mean, I've just now gotten to appreciate the good parts of Christianity as a whole. So I'm excited to hear the pros of Mormonism.
well, you know, I, you said fuck the binary, and I'm kind of like that now. And looking back at my own history, because for all the pain that so many of us have been through as people of faith who grew up, in churches or institutions, spiritual practices, who are queer, we have to kind of step aside from that. And looking back, I realize that a lot of the pain in my journey brought me to where I am today, which
Of
is a
course.
more completed version of myself. So growing up Mormon was all I knew. I wasn't wondering at age 5 or 6, is this good or bad? It just is. And I grew up in a family of 9 children. There were 11 of us. It was a very loving home. My mother stayed at home, and she was a full-time picture perfect mother, where she's waiting at the door greeting us from school with homemade cookies. We're praying together as a family, we're singing, we're laughing, lots of good clean fun. I love my siblings. It's a great way to grow up, because any personality I meet in the world, I can slot into any of my siblings, and I know how to deal with them. And then also, I would just say the biggest thing I took away from my Mormon upbringing is some sort of spiritual fluency, which I think is important in this day and age. I don't think you necessarily have to do it with a church,
Right.
but my family did. And so it really taught me to be in touch with the spiritual side, to cultivate spirituality in your life, to be sensitive to things that may not be tangible or visible, but are real. And I'm grateful for that part of it.
Of course. After hearing that there were 9 sons and daughters, and your mom did not work, what the hell did your dad do to support? I can barely take care of my dog. What did he do to have enough money for 9 kids?
We're in the 90s now. It's changed. But back then, no, back then it was, my dad was a lawyer, and a lot of Mormons are lawyers and dentists and businessmen. And I mean, Mitt Romney is an example of what a man should be. And it's, you make enough money that nobody else has to.
Yeah.
And so my dad had a good job. There was a lot of pressure on the boys in my family to grow up and go to grad school and become professionals, because we were expected to do the same thing.
Right.
I think it's quite common in mainstream Mormon families.
So with having 8 brothers and sisters, what's the ratio boy to girl?
There are 5 girls and 4 boys, and I am the middle child. So I have 4 older siblings and 4 younger siblings, and I'm by far the most well-adjusted.
Oh my gosh! So have any of the others left the faith?
No, I'm the only one.
Did they support your search for meaning in life?
Now or ever or back then? Or
I guess now, because I don't like to rehash things that we've all been through and the trauma that like got us to where we are. So I mean, do you have close relationships with them now?
I have a much better relationship with them now. They were not accepting at the beginning.
Sure.
In fact, some of them cut me out completely for very long periods. I have some siblings that didn't have anything to do with me for about 15 years. So that was part of the journey. But they're much more supportive now. I think there's a lot more awareness.
Sure.
That I'm actually gay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been with my husband for 21 years. So hopefully that made them realize I wasn't chasing a trend.
Right, exactly.
I go through that phase as well, where we're told that, we're trying to be cool.
Yeah, I wish that was what it
Right.
I love the preconceived notions that people have about coming out. It's just hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious because it actually, it kills people, quite literally. But it's just shocking to me to hear what people think about us, in the early stages of them choosing to accept us or not. I'm glad that things are better now, though. So you've been with your husband for 21 years. His name is Brian.
It's Brian. Mm-hmm.
Great. So I know, but for my listeners who don't know, you have a fabulous book called The Black Penguin that really kind of mirrors your journey and your pursuit to know oneself, to accept oneself, and to see one's place in the world. So how did all that you were going through as a young Mormon lead you to become this wildly successful travel writer?
Well, I don't know about the wildly successful travel writer part, and I don't even
you
know
went. You went to Antarctica and found the black penguin. I mean, which is described. I mean, like that nobody sees this. Like,
and I love Antarctica, and it is a spiritual destination for me. I was just there 2 months ago, and it was great to get back because it is so pure and empty and white, and kind of, there's no people there. There's nothing man-made, and that's an exciting place for me to go. How did I make that journey? Well, you can read my book, The Black Penguin by Andrew Evans, available on Amazon or any other independent
plug.
Bestseller. Yes, plug. But that book in and of itself was a spiritual journey to write, because I set it out. I mean, I am a travel writer. I've done over 50 assignments for National Geographic. It is all tied together. It's interesting the way you pose the question, because I was formally kicked out of the church. I was excommunicated.
And you went to Brigham Young, right?
At BYU, and I studied geography, and I studied languages, and I had served a mission in Ukraine. So I'd been through all of these things, but the next rite of passage in Mormonism is marrying a woman and having 9 children. And that step I was not going to take. And I went through conversion therapy and did not graduate from conversion therapy and all of these things. And it led to me, when I finally was excommunicated and when I was formally disowned and really on my own as a gay man who'd kind of been thrown out into the world, the blessing of that is I realized I can do whatever I want. I don't have to become a lawyer. I don't have to fulfill all of these cultural expectations. What do I want to actually do? I want to travel the world and write about it. And I did.
Wow.
And so the two go hand in hand for me.
Sure. That's fascinating. I don't mean to make light of this, but in regards to your conversion therapy, did you ever see Latter Days?
Yeah.
There's a conversion therapy scene in that.
It was very triggering for me. I mean, I'm so glad that movie was made, and I really applaud the filmmaker, because I think it was a beautiful story and entertaining, but also just very profound and raw. I wasn't undergoing any buckets of ice but I know people who were going through those extreme measures. Because I had already had a boyfriend and kissed him. I was seen as a threat, so I wasn't allowed to go to any of these group therapies. I was one-on-one, and I had for me, it really came down to, I had to go on a date with a girl every week and report on it to my therapist, who I had to sign a waiver, was telling my church leaders, and I was and basically I had to finally lie and say I liked girls before I was signed away from that. And that was a year of going on dates with girls.
And that was ordered through BYU.
Yes, that was
okay. BYU. And BYU is a private school, right?
It is. Yes. Yeah.
How? I mean, we watched them play football in the fall. I watched their basketball games. How has there not been some kind of uproar to force their hand into getting rid of these kinds of practices?
I'm surprised. Especially now that we're still having these conversations where we're still discussing the pros and cons of this kind of very damaging. I don't even want to call it therapy. It's torture.
It's abuse.
And it is abuse, and it's taken a lot of work for me to just get past the damage that did. And I think the fact that it's still going on, the fact that children are being forced to undergo this is terrible. BYU, I wish there would be more exposure on it. If you start digging, you can find a lot of it. My biggest issue is that the church is now denying it ever happened.
Right.
And in fact, one of the leaders, Dallin H. Oaks, was recently just in my home state here in Virginia and lied on the record and said that there was no, whatever you want to call it, reparative therapy, conversion therapy. And he denied that this was happening. Well, that's a flat out lie. The archives, show different. And he was actually part of the original program beginning. So I just want to call them out on that we are watching when they lie.
Yes.
There are a lot of us who went through these programs who are happy to go on the record. And
is the program called something specific?
It's called repentance. And that's the thing. I was a sinner, and therefore, in order to get back into the good graces, I had to undergo this. And I was very, I was young, I was manipulated. I was blackmailed. I was told I would be kicked out. They threatened to expel me and freeze my transcripts. I would have lost I had 3 years of college under my belt, and I would have been
How is that legal?
It's not. And had I known better at age 21, I would have
Sure.
brought a lawyer. But when you're in the faith and you are a true believer,
Yep.
There's a lot of manipulative power that ecclesiastically hold, and especially a very patriarchal hierarchy like the Mormon Church. So it was a terrible thing to go through in my young 20s, but also very liberating in that I was able to see the bullshit very early on.
Right.
And I think a lot of members, especially heterosexual members, don't have to face that so early. And I immediately said, oh my goodness, these guys don't know up from down, and they don't know what they're talking about. And also when I saw the kind of coercive methods that they were using, I realized, this is no different. I just served a mission in the former Soviet Union. And I said, this is no different than the tactics that are used by any authoritarian regime. So it taught me to lie, because I had to lie to get out of it.
Right.
I introduced to several of my straight friends to women that they ended up marrying, because I would take them out on first dates. My dates with these girls were the gayest in the world. I was going to the ballet. I was going to the opera. I was going to every small theater production, and I was thrilled to have a friend to take along.
Sure.
And that, that's.
Did any of them become like cause I mean, I feel like females there is an innateness sometimes that females become a safety for gay men. Are there any girls that you dated along the way that became like, oh, like I can date you, quote unquote, because I feel like you're a safe space for me to be myself around?
Yes and no. I mean, it's interesting to me that we're having a lot of these conversations about language when it comes to gender and orientation now, because I think it's not that we've settled on this. We've just decided our language fails us in terms of accurately communicating our experience. And for me, all my friends have been girls since kindergarten.
Right.
That's just, I've always been treated as a very effeminate boy, and I like things that girls like. And I think people from a distance saw that as Andrew has a lot of girlfriends. Mm-hmm. For me, it was are the humans I feel most comfortable with. I felt safer around women.
Yeah.
That all changed when women began to have romantic interests, because suddenly I felt very standoffish. And so to your question, I would say it was fine as long as we were just friends hanging out. It was a problem if they began considering me as a boyfriend. Right. And then that's normally I disappeared, because I didn't want to lead anybody on. And finally I decided, the last girl I ever dated, and again, that's a bad term to say in LA, because that makes you think like, the last girl I took to the ballet so I could see men in tights.
Right.
I was upfront with her. I said, I'm gay. And what's amazing is she went to her ecclesiastic leader, who told her, it was basically her duty to date me and maybe even marry me to help my son. So I think this hurts women as much as it hurts men.
Absolutely.
And I see more and more in the Mormon Church how many women, including people who are very close to me, whose major life decisions were made for them by other people,
right?
By men, by leaders, women who married men that they shouldn't have married, all kinds of things, just for the greater purpose of the institution of the church.
Right.
So it was bad all around, but I think I came out relatively unscathed. Aside from having all kinds of sexual hangups after going through a year of psychological, I can tell you this part from reparative therapy. I went through this, and my therapist was decent. I think he realized he was involved in malpractice and would give me a lot of caveats sometimes when we were talking, but it was cognitive behavioral therapy, and he's going through all the reasons I think I'm gay and then talking me out of all of them. It's almost laughable to think that people get paid to do this. But when we came to the very end, he's like, see, we've shown that you're not gay. Like, we've achieved this over how many months. And finally he said, is there anything else? Is there anything else about you or something that you like that you think makes you gay? And I paused and I waited. And then I was like, I really love doing women's hair. I'm an excellent French braider. All of the African-American students at BYU, of which there were 3 at the time, they taught me how to put braids in because they had nobody else to do ethnic hair in Provo, Utah in the mid 90s. So and that was the end. That's when he kind of gave up. He's like, you're too gay. You want to do women's hair. I mean, it's such a silly cliche to think now, but
it's just so awful.
If you have any younger listeners, they need to understand that the things were not great. Even in the 90s, they were not great.
Oh, yeah.
Most were closeted. It was, if you came out, it was basically closing off all kinds of opportunities for you. Mm-hmm. You were going to be ostracized. And the understanding of what it meant to be queer was so limited.
Yeah.
And so we play and joke with these stereotypes because they're stereotypes that have hurt us.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you're so right. So I have a question. So and forgive me if this is an antagonistic opinion, but I see Mormonism as not necessarily a denomination of Christianity, but a subset of Christianity, because within, like Baptist to Methodist to Episcopal, it's typically they differ in translation or understanding, whereas Mormonism has an addition, being the Book of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Book of Mormon. So how is there room in Mormonism for progressive sect, or are there churches under the Mormon tent that do offer affirming outlooks without condemnation from the top? I mean, does it make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah. And I think it's an important question to explore, because I mean, I'm not going to sit here and defend the Mormon Church theologically. Sure. I don't have a lot to defend it with at this point in my life. I would say that this was something that was important to us growing up in a non-Mormon community, where most people were evangelical or some form of Protestant Christian. And there was a lot, well, the Mormon Jesus isn't the real Jesus. There was a lot of partisanship between all the different sects. And we were really touchy about that, because we were Christians. We did believe in Christ and in salvation in Christ and read the Bible. The Book of Mormon is a story about Christ that takes place in North America and supports the Bible. I mean, I'm telling you what the Mormons believe.
Right.
So but to your other point about there being a spectrum within Mormonism, I would say no. Historically, there's over 300 offshoots of the Mormon Church that broke away as the movement progressed west. And the Mormon Church that we know as the Mormon Church is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which they're now trying to be called because they have a Google problem with the word Mormon. And a lot of it is the backlash from their homophobia and transphobia.
Yeah, because if you Google Mormon, I bet Mormon Boys comes up, which is a very famous porn theme. I've heard.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What you're talking about?
Same. No, I've just heard about it.
No. Well, and the reason that business exists is all of us who went through conversion therapy. Right. Like there's damaged people. And
now it's being fetishized.
Well, we can call it porn therapy.
What's the what's the hanky code for being into Mormons? Is it just like a white cloth? Like a what's the
white unprinted net cloth outside your back pocket?
Right.
Mormon guys.
Oh my God. But you're right about how there were people who were like the Protestants and evangelicals, how they looked at Mormonism. And even as a young kid, I remember it kind of breaking my heart, because my neighborhood growing up, the only Mormon temple in my town of Decatur, Alabama, was like a quarter mile from my parents' house, and it's still there. And it still is a very small congregation. I mean, I can't imagine they have more than a couple hundred on Sundays in a town of 60,000 people. But I remember in maybe middle school or high school, there being an uproar, because it's, most small towns in the South are pretty theocratically ran, right? And I remember there being an uproar when the Mormon Church, when they added a cross to their steeple, because the other Christian quote unquote churches thought that that church is not Christian. How can they claim our cross? It was a whole thing.
I'm wondering, because Mormons don't use crosses even now. They don't use that symbolism. And a lot of it is this belief in a living
Right.
gone, living a resurrected Jesus.
Right.
Well, I'm curious what that was about. To your question about the spectrum of belief, I think, people need to remember Mormonism is a very young faith. It's
Right.
less than 2 years old, and it's transitioned and evolved a lot. There have been all these breakaway groups, but it's a highly centralized, highly organized, hierarchical corporation that's based in Salt Lake. And the church and its leadership really can kind of control the messaging from the top.
Right.
There's strict codes of obedience and faithfulness and loyalty. So I think it's becoming hard for people to have that nuanced approach because the church does not foster that. When
Right.
you look at like Judaism, there's this whole spectrum in Judaism where you can be Reform or Orthodox, and that can mean a lot of things. You can really pick and choose, and it's all okay. There's not one centralized person calling all the shots.
Sure.
Mormonism has been that. I think it's changing, and it's becoming closer to what you're describing only because members themselves are realizing,
Well, they're being affected also. Like their brother is coming out as gay, and they don't want to not love their brother because that love is a natural feeling.
Yeah, and I think finally, I mean, I'm amazed by these groups like Mama Dragons in Utah, who were Mormon mothers with queer kids who said, enough. We're sick of our children
Mama
being
Dragons.
Dragons, and they're a wonderful group. I just want to mention them because they're doing very important work. And there's also a house that was started in Provo, Utah called Encircle, which is a nonprofit for LGBTQ plus youth to come and to have a community. And so I feel like there's so many more resources now that are being provided by the culture and by the community, and really going against the leadership of the first presidency and the brethren of the church, for the sake of the children. And the real problem is, I mean, this is a life and death situation.
Yes, it is.
I don't want to make light of it or be too triggering, but there's a suicide problem among young LGBTQ plus youth and adults. And those of us who went through that pain and suffering have really had to question, is life worth living?
Correct.
And that, to me, it's awful that that's still going on.
Yep.
And it's still happening to this next generation. They're still getting hit with the same garbage that you and I were hit with. So I applaud the parents and families who finally said, no, we love our family too much to do this, and our family is more important than the institution.
Yes, because they can. Yeah, exactly. And also, just real quick, because I didn't misspeak, I just looked online to see it. So the uproar was about them adding a steeple, not a cross. So the Mormon Church Indicator did not have a steeple. And then when they added a steeple, it looked like a regular church across the street. And that's what the uproar was about, was that steeple to the Protestants and evangelicals in Decatur, Alabama, equated their message to these other messages. And that's what the uproar was about.
And what I find so hilarious about that is, as two queer men having this conversation, is that really, when you think about it, it's just drag. A steeple is just drag. All of that is just costuming.
Yes.
And it's a very superficial symbol. It's kind of, what are you doing inside that building?
Yes.
That matters. But you're right. These things become uproars and controversies, and people get very caught up in it.
So since you brought up drag, do you watch Drag Race? Are you a Drag Race fan?
Oh my goodness. First of all, I was gay before it was cool.
Okay.
And I hope RuPaul hears this. I purchased the full season one when it was not even available. I had to go and download it on my iPad and watched it all. And I said, this is genius, and it will never get past this little tiny, this is so niche. So I love Drag Race, and I think it's such an empowering show. I've chatted with Michelle Visage on Facebook before, and she's an incredible force. And
yes, she is
such an important voice and icon for us. So I'm 2 thumbs up for Drag Race.
My dream guest is Michelle Visage over RuPaul. I mean, I love RuPaul, but I just, something about her. I mean, every gay has like an element of mommy issues, and maybe that's what it is. It's just like her assertiveness, her masculinity. Like, she's probably got bigger balls than I do. But I in watching this season, and we just wrapped on UK versus the world. But who are you rooting for this season on RuPaul's Drag Race?
Wait, I have to fill you in. So I say all of this. But Rue, if you're listening, you can stop listening now. I stopped watching after season 6. I felt like it just became really, or maybe it was season 7. It just kind of became a trope and it became a caricature of itself. So I checked out. And then very recently, my husband, who's never had any interest, he loves live drag, but he was like not interested in it.
Sure.
He finally said, let's watch these. So now we're watching the former ones. So we just finished 11. We're watching 12 now. No spoilers.
Okay. Yep. No spoilers.
And so, yeah, I'm sorry. I can't be all hip and chat with you because it's 2019 in my
Got
drag.
it. Well, until to many people, it still is 2019 because of COVID, and it's just a wash the past couple of years. But I didn't join the Drag Race bandwagon until season 10 because my best friend Brittany in Atlanta, she got me into it. And she was a huge Drag Race fan, and she still is, but she has a pretty demanding job, so she isn't able to watch, live like I do. And so now I've seen every season, every episode, every country, every All Stars multiple times over. And so I always tell, bring things up to her, and she's like, I don't know, I haven't seen this season. And I'm like, are you even a Drag Race fan? Like, how embarrassing for you. So now it's become our joke of me being like the Drag Race guru, and she's like this amateur, kind of fan.
Yeah, and I follow several of the drag queens online, and I mean, I think the show does so much good.
Oh my God, yeah.
For all of us, and I love that it celebrates our own diversity within the community, that there really are no rules, but also to strive to be better and to be a better human. And I think RuPaul's humor is so multi-layered.
Yeah.
That there are things that can be said or done that just leave me laughing for hours. So I applaud it, and I realize why some people might not be a fan.
Sure.
But I'm like, this is major. This is revolutionary for a show like that to have become as mainstream and so popular, and to cast us in a light that is fun but also respectful.
Yeah, to normalize that gray area that we talked about, but with the trope of being multicolored and, every kind of fabric, every kind of shade of human being. And I just love that it celebrates the gray area, because again, that's my favorite place to be. So we've got some fun chat. So I want to know more now, just with what's going on in the world. I know that you have a master's degree, right, in Russian studies or Russian economics. What is it?
Russian foreign policy.
Okay. Did you, to me, that sounds like someone who's wanting to get into politics or into, some kind of state position. What led you to want to, I know that you did your mission in the Ukraine, but what led you to that kind of study?
Well, I served my mission in Ukraine in Kharkiv, which is the city that's currently being bombed by the Russians. I lived for 2 years within 15 miles of that Russian border and got to witness firsthand what that was like. And there were a lot of the same issues back then that they're dealing with now. Afterwards, I went to BYU. I started as an art major. I was painting. And this is what I really wanted to pursue. When I went through reparative therapy, I was counseled that art was too gay, that is where queer people hung out. And I was counseled to change my major. And I did. I went into geography, which was another passion of mine.
That sounds very heteronormative. So congratulations.
Well, it clearly worked.
Right.
But I love all these things, and I'd always wanted to work for National Geographic. So that was kind of what propelled me. But my skill set and what I pursued in graduate school was more understanding how different cultures interact with each other, really, and what influences them. And my master's thesis was on the Russian Orthodox Church, and specifically how it influenced Russian foreign policy, because the Russian Orthodox Church was infiltrated by the KGB completely during the Soviet era. So upon independence, the church became an institution, but it was run by a spy organization.
Yep.
And this is what we're still dealing with now.
Well, even yesterday, wasn't there an announcement of the Russian Orthodox Church basically approving of the attack on Ukraine?
Yes, and one of the reasons is homophobia.
Yeah.
Because they say Ukraine allows gay pride parade, and it is they follow a lot of European laws about respect for the queer community, and Russia's probably one of the largest homophobic governments functioning today.
Yeah.
And they are coming for us. And this was his kind of the metropolitan patriarchate of Moscow. This was his defending the attack on Ukraine as we are sanctifying. We're going against this country that has turned against God because they accommodate queers. And so I think this is a battle for all of us. We're fighting for a lot of different fights in this war, and I think one of them is for the dignity of the diversity of humans, and that's not Russia's. I don't want to go after the people, but this culture and this government are very, very chauvinist, very heteronormative, and that's all very interesting. And this is what I wrote my thesis about. But I did work in the field for a while. I worked at NATO in Brussels, at NATO headquarters. I worked in Washington, D.C. for several years as a lobbyist, primarily for women's labor rights in the sweatshop industry, which was very interesting. But my passion was writing. And so once I'd sold enough and published some books and could quit my day job, I did, and took it in a very different direction. And now I'm happy to report, after all these years, I've started painting again because it's not too gay.
It's not too gay at all. Oh, I love that. What a beautiful full circle moment. That's so cool. So have you kind of put a pause on writing to pursue or to express creatively through painting, or is it just another creative tool in your belt?
Not at all. I'll never stop writing. I love writing, and it's what I've dedicated myself to. I feel it's just another facet of art. So painting and writing overlap. I've been working on a novel all through the pandemic. That's pretty important to me. I started it in May 2020. I'm hoping to finish a draft this summer. Wow. So
what's it about?
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yes, we love a mystery.
When it's done, we can chat again.
I love that. Yes.
But it is a lot of, it is about my spiritual journey, definitely.
Yeah.
And I've fictionalized it because it's just, in art, it gives you a lot more freedom.
Sure.
I'm really enjoying the process, and I feel, I teach creative writing. I do the photo workshops because National Geographic photography was a big part of my job. So I really feel like the visual feeds the word, and the word feeds the visual, and you kind of need to have both. And I always encourage my students to learn from their fellow artists. So doing musical theater is going to help you block scenes when you're writing, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
You don't need to hear me say all this.
Well, it still feels good to be validated. So so by all means. Just
to go back to what you're saying about drag, like I'm watching Drag Race now, and so much of what they're doing is teaching how to tell a story.
Yeah.
How do you do it in makeup, or the way you walk, or so I'm learning from Drag Race.
Yeah.
I'm trying to apply these techniques in my art.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. I'm so thankful for Drag Race. People, can slam it or whatever they want to for, various reasons, but I just think it's one of the most special shows and experiences right now. I collect decanters and just like old alcoholic paraphernalia. So I have this really beautiful, is a decanter and like set of glasses that actually it's USSR crystal, and it even says like on the bottom it says original USSR crystal on it. Like, I don't know if it was a company or just a label to signify.
Does it say what city it's made in?
No, it does not. So it may have at one point, it's just a sticker that they have on the bottom that it looks like it's very old. But I just think like how I used to look at it and be like, how cool, like that I have this. And now I'm like, how heartbreaking that there's a person trying to get back to this. So have you been back to that part of the world since being over there for your mission?
I have. I wrote the first, this just to prove it's real, the first guidebook to Ukraine in English. And I published that in 2003. It's now in its 4th edition. It's now a historical document because several chapters of this book have been blown up in real life. They don't exist anymore. But I continued to travel in Ukraine. I work there. I went there when I was interning at NATO. I worked there when I was a lobbyist in DC. I stopped going once Yanukovych, the violence in 2014 is when I stopped traveling to Ukraine, which was hard. I love the country, but it did become too dangerous to just go freely. And now it's killing me to see what's happening. Really, really tragic.
Yeah, it is. Do you see, because obviously the people within Russia's borders are not able to see actual events and reportings of what's happening. Do you see any end to this? Is there any optimism you have about the situation at all?
I'm very optimistic. I wrote an op-ed, and I can send you that link if you'd like. About
Please do. I'll post it.
Yeah, as to how we got here, and the reason is as horrific as this is, and it is a human tragedy. The real toll here is human. The people that are being killed on both sides, the innocents of Ukraine that are being murdered. It's horrific. My hope is that this is only going to reinforce Ukraine's eternal viability on Earth. And nobody was paying attention to Ukraine when I was living and working. The minute you would bring it up in Europe or in North America, even in foreign policy circles, people talked about Ukraine fatigue. And now the whole world is woke. Ukraine is a country. It's a beautiful country. They're innocent. They've been attacked unnecessarily. And so now I feel like it's this Barbra Streisand effect. Putin has made the entire world aware of the true borders of Ukraine, the spirit of that country that I love. The world is understanding that Ukrainians will not surrender.
Yeah.
They will not. They are fighting for so much. And in my op-ed, I wrote about what they are fighting for. This is a very old history. The Russians and the Russian propagandists here in the United States would have you believe that this is a recent skirmish, and it's this irredentis, all of the hogwash that they're selling on the news. I would say even a lot of American news channels, they're realizing this is wrong. This is a very old, centuries-old conflict. It actually goes back to even before the 10th century, and I've stressed that this is very old, and this is Ukraine's real moment to finally be free of Russian oppression. And now the whole world is invested in that.
Yep.
Divested from Russia. And to me, we need to take hope in that.
Yeah.
That as a planet, we are cooperating, and we are seeing our common values, and we are focusing on what we share in common. That's where we need to be. I wish we'd been here before the pandemic, but here we are now.
Yeah.
And so I'm very optimistic. I have full faith the Ukrainians will triumph. I think this is the end of Putin, whatever that looks like, even if it's him holed up alone in the Kremlin, miserable. But I think this is going to be a tragedy, and Ukraine must rebuild, and we must all help them.
Yeah.
But I see a light at the end of the tunnel. Absolutely.
Are there any charities that you're involved with in Ukraine that you can plug for us, for people to send donations to? Or
I would recommend two right now that I think are vetted, that my friends are participating in, and that's what I would go to. And the first one is the comebackalive.in.ua, and it's the Comeback Alive Fund. That is the Ukrainian Armed Forces, and you will be supporting them in their defense of their country. And then the other one I would recommend is the Ukrainian Freedom Fund. And you can just go to ukrfreedomfund.org, and you can donate directly. And they are supporting the wounded defenders. So anyone that's been wounded in Ukraine by the Russian incursion. And this has been established since 2014, because people need to realize that the Russian aggression, the violence, and started in 2014.
Right. And that was the year Crimea was assaulted and annexed, right?
Yeah, correct.
It's I try not to ingest a lot of news throughout the day, but I have not been able to turn it off. Even when it's the same footage saying over and over, it's just reinstilled my own American patriotism. And I feel ashamed to say that I have accused people of taking our freedoms for granted, when I am, case in point, I have been taking our freedoms for granted, and just seeing how quickly it can happen, and how I think a lot of it. And another thing that I'm ashamed to recognize in this is that there's a sense of racial bias in this that I'm recognizing in myself as well. And that when these things happen in the Middle East, it's like, oh, that's normal. We're used to that happening. When it's happening to people that look like you and I, that's when I all of a sudden became shocked. And so I've really become aware of the fact of like, oh, there's, no matter how quote unquote woke I try to become, there still is a level of racial bias within me that I have to actively work on and beat. And I hate that it's taken this for me to recognize that in myself, but I am, aware of it now more so than ever. And I hope that I can correct my thoughts and actions over the course of the coming events that have even yet to happen in other places in the world. But yeah, it's just thank you for sharing your thoughts on what's happening over there right now, because it's you have firsthand experience with it. So their religion is a kind of a subset of Catholicism. Is that accurate with Russian Orthodox? And
I would say it's a little more complex in that the split between Catholicism and Orthodoxy happened with the split from Constantinople and Rome. So, we're going back to the 4th and 5th century, that they're taking different, the whole establishment of the Holy Roman Empire, and Western Europe becomes Catholic, Eastern Europe becomes, and, the Greek Christian church is based in Constantinople. And Christianity came to Russia through Saint Volodymyr, who was living in Kiev, what is now Kiev, and who was baptized in Chersones, which is a city in Crimea, an old Greek Christian outpost there, and then baptized his whole country. And there's a painting that depicts this, or several paintings in Kiev, where you have Saint Volodymyr looking out over the river Dnieper. He orders all of the Russians, they were called at the time, into the water of the Dnieper, and he baptizes the river, and hence all of the people are baptized. So this was the Christianization of the Slavic civilization. Now, Russia broke away from Ukraine and then went to Novgorod, then to Moscow, and then to St. Petersburg. So that is a breakaway church. So the man you're quoting, who's friends with Putin, represents the Moscow Patriarchate, which is one break off of the church. There's actually 4 different Orthodox churches in Ukraine that some was an expatriated church during some of the skirmishes. One is an Eastern Rite Catholic church, which is part of Poland, where they were believing in the Pope, but also keeping Orthodoxy. And then you have the Ukraine Orthodox Church that it believes the Moscow Patriarchate is their emissary on earth. And then you have another one that has their own, the Kiev Patriarchate. So it's very complicated, but you as a Southerner should appreciate that, because there's a whole lot of Baptist churches that all hate each other. Yeah. And it's no different.
And think that the other is going to hell, or vice versa. Yeah, Southern Baptist is the most notable Baptist, but there's Independent Baptist, there's Free Will Baptist, there's Congregational Baptist. There's buttloads of. Can we say buttloads anymore? Is that derogatory? I don't know.
I think buttloads of Baptists is
that may be the title of my one-man show.
I think you should.
Buttloads of Baptists.
I think when we're talking about values, Ukraine is interesting because they've taken a very different step. Russia's very much this: we are the Kremlin, we are heterosexual, we are strong men, we believe in one church, we do. And that's not the truth on the ground in Russia. You have all these autonomous republics, you have indigenous Buddhist communities, and a huge Muslim population that's very suppressed in Russia. Ukraine took a very different tack. They embraced these European values of pluralism. They said, we're going to have freedom of religion. There is a homegrown Muslim community of the Crimean Tatars in Crimea. You have a massive Jewish history in Ukraine. In fact, I would argue European Jewish history is rooted in Ukraine. Hasidism was founded in Ukraine. One of the largest Hasidic gatherings takes place in Ukraine every year. And we have a Jewish president in Ukraine who is defending Ukraine. And so I think Ukraine is showing Russia how it's done. And they're showing Russia up, and Russia doesn't like this message of inclusion and plurality and democracy and rule of law. So we should also be fighting for that. I think.
Is there a conservative faction of Ukraine who maybe is wanting the invasion to become Russian again, or to build a new USSR?
that goes against my experience. I think a lot of it is invented. I know the Donbass very well. I know all of these cities that are in the news: Mariupol, Donetsk, Makivka, Horlivka. These are ethnic Russians who speak Russian and feel a strong connection to Russia. But I think so much of it is hype and propaganda. I don't think there's a homegrown grassroots irredentist movement to return to Russia. That area was never Russia. It's a very complex history, but for many centuries it was simply referred to as the Dike Pole, which just means the wild field, because it was a no man's land of marauding Cossacks and Turks. And so the history there is very complicated. Catherine the Great settled it. She moved a lot of Russians into that. So yes, there are people who are conservative, and yes, back in the 90s, there were people who thought the breakup of the Soviet Union was bad.
Right.
And it was bad. I lived there at a time where people were really suffering. But I don't think it's a real movement within Ukraine. I think it's completely financially backed and weapons backed by Moscow. And this is what they've done in Transnistria and Moldova. They've done it in Abkhazia and Georgia. They've tried to do it in Latvia. This is Putin's MO. He is a trick pony, which is destabilize my neighboring countries by just feeding weapons and money to one little region. My take on it. People could argue differently.
No, this has been so enlightening already. It's a whole different take and perspective than I'm able to get on any kind of news source. Wow. I did not expect to get that kind of information today. Thank you.
I would say be careful with your news sources, because a lot of them are very, very ill-informed. And what's really funny is I'm seeing all these maps pop up online and on TV that, these are produced by the Kremlin for the Kremlin, and they're very happy when you share them. And they're total bullshit as well. Yeah. So if I can say that on your podcast.
we can say whatever we want to on here.
Well, I'm just saying there's a lot of bullshit that floods out of the Kremlin. So be careful what you're listening to. And I feel there's been some responsible media in the US and a lot of irresponsible media.
Who are you trusting to watch and get coverage from?
Nothing on TV.
Yeah.
Really. I have a lot of friends on the ground. I listen to a lot of independent Ukrainian sources. I think things like BBC and Al Jazeera are more accurate.
I love Al Jazeera, and I hate that we don't have that station anymore, because it was the most unbiased news coverage I had ever seen here in the States, at least.
Yeah, so I'm kind of, but I'm also not watching it a lot. It's very traumatic for me.
I'm sure.
When I lived there, it was bad when I lived there, and it wasn't a violent conflict. It was a conflict of people were starving, people had no heat, people had no electricity, and I lived through that as a young person. So now I just can't. And when people, especially, we have a lot of know-it-alls in America because they read an op-ed in the New York Times. They're now the expert, and I can't listen to that, because
I call it the American Idol effect. And I say that as a singer, but I'm afraid to sing now because everyone's now a judge, but it's the same thing. You watch one show or read one book. Oh, now you're an expert. Okay. Fuck off.
Yeah. Well, I was about to critique your voice, actually. No, I mean, it's a problem. And I think it is part of our just American culture, of wanting to be the best and shine the brightest and all.
It's so, and I love that right now we're seeing the all but leader of the free world in Zelensky, who's been so ignored and laughed at and mocked. I just love that this short young man is leading the world in hope right now.
Well, it's important. I think we've had a vacuum of good leadership. We've forgotten what that means.
Have we?
Well, that's been my experience.
I know. I'm
rather checked out myself, because I don't think we have a lot of good leaders right now that we're paying attention to. I think there's great leaders around the world, and this idea of American exceptionalism and that we've always got it right and the best, we gotta step aside and look. I'll plug a friend of mine who's the First Lady of Iceland. Her book just came out, and it's called
I'm sorry.
Secrets
Can we just go back to that? Just that little low key flex you had. My friend, the First Lady of Iceland. I don't know anyone who can say something like that.
So it's not a humble brag. We went to grad school together, and she's my friend, and she's a mother, and raised kids and did all these things, and now she's finding herself in this role as First Lady, and she's written this amazing book that's just come out, and I recommend it only because we're talking about leadership, and her name is Eliza Reid, R-E-I-D. The book is Secrets of the Sprakkar, which is Sprakkar, which is an Icelandic word for outstanding woman. And it's basically a book of all the things she learned as an immigrant to Iceland from the women of Iceland, and how she's incorporating it now in her vision of leadership, and very inspiring, very queer affirming. And her husband, who's the president, Guðni, was the one who wore a rainbow bracelet when he met Mike Pence on an official visit. And that's the president of Iceland. And that's, these are the leaders we need.
Yes.
Plugging her book, Secrets of the Sprakkar, and I learned from it for sure.
I'm going to order it today. I'm so excited. Thank you for that plug. Where are you now spiritually? Growing up Mormon, being excommunicated, traveling to Eastern Europe to experience that version of spirituality. Where have you landed, or have you landed?
Oh, I'm in a much better place. I'm in a much healthier place. I'm much happier.
Because of what?
Well, I feel I've just been going through, I've reached this point in my life where I've almost been outside the church more than I was in it. I feel I've liberated myself from a lot of false thinking, a lot of judgment, a lot of worrying about what other people think of me. I feel I have a much healthier love for myself that I wasn't allowed to have before. And that's not ego, but it's saying appreciate what this is, appreciate what I'm working with, and do the best I can. And I think to get to that point for me, it's been a painful journey. It's a lot of knocks on the heads, a lot of falling to the ground, a lot of tears, a lot of drama. And yet I wouldn't have traded it for anything, because to me, that's what a true spiritual path is. This idea, this kind of commercial religion that we sell in America, where you join a church or you're raised in it and you pay money to it, and then they give you these feelings and this worldview. It's so arcane. It just doesn't fit the world we're in. I think so much of the younger generations are experiencing this spiritual crisis where churches are failing them. They crave spirituality. You're asking me where I'm in. I don't belong to any church. I don't think I ever will join another church. I think for me, that's a toxic step, to give up some of your freedom and a lot of the gifts given as humans, which are our own senses, our own intuition, our own souls. We're giving that up when we join these institutions and adhere to others' ideas. So I've had to shed all of that. I'm lucky in that I get to travel all over the world. So my work has taken me to all 7 continents, to over 100 countries, and I've seen and experienced worship in so many different cultures. And so I embrace it all. And that really is my mentality. So when I'm in a Muslim country, that's how I worship. It speaks. When I'm in a Buddhist country, that's how I worship. I am open to all of it, as long as we're not harming others. So, Islam has such a bad rap because of this extreme fundamentalism that gets blown up in the media. The reality is there are millions, hundreds of millions of beautiful, faithful, deep spiritual Muslims out there that I have so much respect for. And so this is kind of where I'm at. I'm definitely going through a Taoist phase right now. I read the Tao Te Ching every day. I've brought meditation into my practice. I do yoga. I'll say this, and you can laugh as somebody in LA, but I remember being in Hollywood, and I'm staying with a friend, and I went to his yoga class, and me rolling my eyes like, this is such bullshit. This is California. Like, what we're going to drink wheatgrass juice and talk to a guru. And I showed up not knowing anything, and it was hot yoga.
Oh,
So already I'm self-conscious, because you folks in LA like to get naked whenever you can.
that's true.
And I'm a Midwesterner, so I'm like in my tiny shorts, and I've got my spare tire, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm around all these beautiful people that are showing all this skin, and it's hot. You've done hot yoga, it's hot.
Yeah.
I'm sweating in Hollywood with all of these beautiful naked people. But I had a spiritual experience. At the end of it, the teacher, you reach this other state, and the teacher said something so profound, which is like, we're on our own journey, where it's not a race. We're all moving forward side by side. And these ideas are important to me today. So I think that's where I'm at. I really respect the individual journey, that we cannot prescribe one another's path. I think that is a sin, to tell someone what their path is. Absolutely not.
Yes.
We have to find that path ourselves. We have to step into the darkness of self-discovery and see where it takes us.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm at right now.
I was going to ask you before we kind of started to wrap up, if you had to go to a church tomorrow, what would it be? But that answers the question. It just depends on where you are, what day, and who's around.
Yeah, I mean, I avoid judgmental asshole churches if I can, and they're out there. I did go to a Mormon church for the first time in years recently, just trying to show some support to my dad, and I just found it very boring. There just wasn't a lot going on there. I didn't feel like seeking good. For me, so much of church and worship is about sharing the divine with one another, and I see so little of that happening. So I remember having been kicked out of my church, and what that felt like to be expelled. And what's funny is when I moved to DC with my husband, we moved from England. Even the gay gym would not give us a family membership, because this was before gay marriage was legal. And so but the JCC, the Jewish Community Center across the street, said, "Sure, you're a family," and they gave us a family membership, and they embraced us. And I've been going to a Passover Seder with my friends for the last 17 years, and that's part of my spirituality. There's so much beauty in Passover, and
I love Passover.
Yeah, and we're coming into this season now, and that's important to me. So I think the communities that have embraced me as a gay man, I really have a lot of respect for, because you know what it's like to be discriminated against. I remember attending a Black church in DC as the sole white man, and just being loved and embraced, and I remember them bringing the sacrament to me, which is, as a Mormon, I wasn't allowed to take the sacrament because I was gay. I was prohibited from taking. And here, as a white man, I walk into a Black church, and I'm just hugged and loved and spiritually fed. So, I say, walk away from the places that don't embrace you.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, but there are places that will embrace you. They are out there, and I've had to find them, and I'm still searching for them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so optimistic. If the divine were standing before you today, what would you say to them?
Thank you. I would express appreciation. I think so much of the meaning of life for me is not understanding, but enjoying and appreciating and feeling gratitude. It's
not about understanding, it's about enjoying.
Yeah.
And therein lies the gratitude. I love that. Andrew, thank you so much for being here today. I feel like I've learned so much about so many things. Y'all, please go check him out. What's your website and what's your social medias?
I'm at Where's Andrew on Twitter and on Instagram. I deleted Facebook a year ago.
Fuck you, Zuckerberg.
Because that's no longer bringing me joy.
Yeah.
And I'm andrewevans.org on the internets.
And we can find your books there, and then eventually we'll find your novel there.
Yes, hopefully we'll have a novel coming out soon. And whoever's listening, I love you, fellow human. I'll say that.
I love that. We'll end on that note. Thank you again for being here, Andrew. It's been such a treat. I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person one day. If you're ever in LA and want to go do some yoga, you let me know.
I love yoga now. I'm a convert.
Good.
I try not too long without it. In California, I love it. So absolutely.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure.
Take care.
And all the people said, gay men. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Fagnostic Podcast hosted by me, Matt Hayes. You can find me at matthayes.com, that's MATHAYES.com, or on Just the Millennial socials at Hayes on It, HAYES on It. Please go subscribe, review, and share this podcast. And in the meantime, peace be with all y'all.
Hi, Michael Spicer here. Matt Hayes forgot to put my name in the credits of his podcast as the composer, but I'm here to tell you that I wrote the music for his podcast. Whatever it's called, I don't know.